He was the man who had everything.
This has about 750 to 800 horsepower.
But never enough of these.
He told me he was bringing in about 1 tank a week.
Imagine a small country could win a war with these.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
My dad started a tradition of getting an old beat-up car, and then he would crush it with a tank in the field out here.
His death put his heirs on a mission.
Is this what your dad would want?
You push up on that,
Start.
just like that, she comes to life.
And talk about sticker shock and awe.
Was the auction a nail-biter?
You bet it was.
350. So.
I'm Jamie Colby, and today I'm driving up a long, steep hill in Portola Valley, California, near San Francisco. I'm here to visit the heirs of a man who made the record books with his incredibly strange collection. And if I'm lucky, I may even get to ditch this SUV and take the controls of a serious off-road ride.
My name is Allison Littlefield. These are my half-brothers, David and Scott.
When our father died in 2009, we inherited 240 armored military vehicles.
Lots and lots of tanks.
Hi, Allison. I'm Jamie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me up. This is a magnificent ranch. The ranch is very nice, but I'm here to see something else.
Come this way.
These are real?
These are real.
This is one of several buildings on the Littlefield Ranch where they garage their strange inheritance. Some guys collect stamps and coins. Their dad, Jacques Littlefield, collected tanks. In fact, what you see here is part of the world's largest private collection of armored vehicles. Allison tells me some of these tanks are incredibly rare, including this World War II German Panzer IV, this 8-ton half-track, and this Sherman tank. What a collection.
It is a real preservation of history, and that's what I'm so excited about.
So how did all of this get started? Well, Jacques Littlefield is born in 1949, the son of Edmund Wattis Littlefield, heir to a prosperous mining and land development company called Utah Construction. At an early age, Jacques develops a strong interest in all things mechanical.
This is him as a young boy playing with his model train set.
He looks almost like he could be in an ad.
I know, it's such a sweet
trains.
picture.
In the late 60s, the Vietnam War is raging, but Jacques never drafted due to hearing loss from a childhood bout with encephalitis. He attends Stanford University. After majoring in economics, he goes to B school, then takes a job at Hewlett-Packard. That's where the 23-year-old Littlefield meets his new boss, Bill Bowler, who becomes a lifelong friend. He shares with Bill his latest passion, tanks. Where did it begin?
He checked a book out of the library called American Tanks and Tank Destroyers. And that book attracted his attention so much that he said it all started there.
Jacques' first military purchase in 1976 for $3,500 is this M3A1 World War II wheeled scout car, which saw combat both in North Africa and the invasion of Sicily. I find it ironic that he collected tanks even when people were anti-war. Would he have shown up at a protest?
Jacques was conservative in his politics, so no, he would definitely not have shown up at a protest and probably would have pretty much ignored it.
1976 is also the year Jacques' father sells the family business empire to General Electric in what was then the biggest merger in U.S. history. His dad's now a billionaire, and son Jacques leaves HP to manage his personal fortune. He takes up residence here at Pony Tracks Ranch, gets married, and starts a family. Scott, what do you remember most about your dad?
Building stuff. We used to go to the wood shop and to make things there. We'd have birthday parties, and we'd get to go around on a Sherman tank.
One of my favorite events was our 4th of July party. My dad started a tradition of getting an old beat-up car, and then he would crush it with a tank in the field out here.
A truly successful army is one that will not be called upon to fight, for no one will dare to provoke it.
The timing of Jacques' interest in tanks is perfect. With the U.S. military expanding under President Reagan, the Pentagon is getting rid of a lot of outdated equipment. Jacques snatches up a few tanks and then a few more, including this M5A1 Stuart tank built by Cadillac back in 1943, a model used in the invasion of Normandy. Jacques buys it for $20,000. The end of the Cold War and then the first Gulf War lead to more tank buying opportunities. Jacques pounces. Sherman tanks, this M1917 6-ton tractor, a Russian T-72 used by Saddam Hussein's forces, even a Scud missile launcher. Jacques builds these barns to house them all.
This is him working at the tank restoration shop here on property. He was very involved in the process. He really enjoyed it.
So it's a professional operation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had a great team of people who would rebuild these things down to the nuts and bolts.
I remember I was in Ukraine and I saw a TV show starring my dad.
This has about 750 to 800 horsepower.
It was a strange experience.
In 1999, at the age of 50, Jacques is staggered by a colon cancer diagnosis and goes into treatment.
I was in a bit of shock when I first found out.
Did he tell you or did he hide it to himself?
He was very good at hiding it.
He always had a really positive attitude.
And a life's too short outlook that, as his cancer goes into remission, sends his tank buying into overdrive.
He told me he was bringing in about 1 tank a week.
Do you have any idea how much money he spent?
A lot.
Yeah, I'd prefer not to think about it sometimes, but yeah, definitely it was his passion.
Coming up, the tank and the challenge Jacques Littlefield was most passionate about. Plus, it's my turn at the controls.
Yep.
Okay, I'm up. How do I get in?
Any way you get down in there is fair game.
But first, our strange inheritance quiz question. How did these armored vehicles become known as tanks? They originally were made from water tanks. A general named Tank commanded them in battle. Tank was a secret code name to conceal their development. The answer in a moment. So how did armored vehicles become known as tanks? The answer is C. During World War I, the British coined the term as a code name to keep their development a secret.
I try not to have too many duplicates of what other collections would have lots of.
In the early 2000s, Jacques Littlefield, the world's foremost armored vehicle collector, seems to be beating colon cancer. The fight lays him low physically, but it only revs up his passion for tanks and more tanks. He asks his dear friend Bill Bowler to help restore them.
He told me he was bringing in about 1 tank a week, every week for the last several years.
By 2007, Jacques' shopping spree gets him into the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest private collection of armored vehicles, with 229 of them. Only a year later, he has 240. But his cancer returns with a vengeance, and in January 2009, he tells Bill he's just hoping to finish one thing before he dies: the ongoing restoration of a super rare German Panzer V Panther. Jacques considers it his greatest find.
The story, as we understand it, was it had to retreat, and on its way to Poland, it attempted to cross a frozen river. And the tank broke through the ice and fell to the bottom. It sat under this river for about 50 years.
It's not in good condition.
This particular restoration started off looking worse than this turret right here. It was remanufactured here in its entirety.
Just in time for a fast-fading Jacques Littlefield.
We had a discussion about it, and although the turret had not been put on it, he smiled and he said, I'm satisfied.
Look at it now. How long does this take?
The total restoration took 7 years. It's one of only 2 that are really restored to this degree.
How much did he pay for it?
This is a fairly valuable tank. There are multiple millions of dollars in it.
On January 7th, 2009, just days after he tells Bill Bowler he's satisfied, Jacques Littlefield passes away at the age of 59.
There was a procession, and the coffin was carried on the back of a tank.
The mechanics he'd been working with thought that would be a fitting way to send him off.
Jacques wills the entire tank collection to his children.
It was really scary to lose him so young. I turned 20 a month before he passed away, and it kind of went from being in college to having to take on a lot of responsibility very quickly.
So what do you do when you've inherited a collection of 240 armored vehicles? In keeping with Jacques' wishes, there's a trust for the tanks, controlled by Allison and her half-brothers, but no instructions on what to do with them.
He never left me with any sort of message regarding the tanks specifically.
So the siblings call Jacques' friend Bill Bowler back to active duty. He'll lead the Littlefield heirs through the quagmire ahead.
The objective was to find a long-term solution.
In the short term, I'm wondering what it's like to drive one of these things.
Why don't you climb up and get in the driver's seat?
Right on cue. Bill says it's an M551 Sheridan, one of Jacques' favorites. Okay, I'm up. How do I get in?
Any way you get down in there is fair game.
I could always get new knees, I suppose.
If you look on the floor, you'll see there's a great big single brake in the center.
Got it. Brake.
And there's a foot throttle on the right.
Probably no texting at this time.
That's probably not a good idea. We're not going to turn on anything else other than now the starter, which is the next lever over. You push up on that.
Start.
Just like that, she comes to life.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so.
Are you built it in?
I've got a great big handle I can hang on to here, and if I get in trouble, I'll just jump. Put your other foot on the accelerator, let the brake off, and we're out of here. Go for it. Pull as hard as you can. Pull real hard. Give it lots of gas. Right there's just fine.
That's good. Oh. Enjoyed it so much. I can't wait to do it again. Can I come back tomorrow?
Well, we've got 80 more that you got to try. They're all different.
I should test drive them before I make a decision.
Yeah.
After their father's death, the Littlefield heirs retain a skeleton crew of mechanics just to keep all those tanks in good shape.
Did you ever say to yourselves, let's just sell it?
No.
I was hoping that we could maybe keep the collection somewhere locally, but after all those options were explored, there wasn't any way we could keep the collection together here.
Then in 2013, a visitor from the East drops in. Rob Collings represents a well-to-do family in Massachusetts that's devoted to military history.
Let's go for a flight.
He tours the country with World War II planes, like this B-17 Flying Fortress. Collings is looking to maybe buy a tank or two when Bill Bowler takes the conversation to a whole new level.
Bill said, you know, I don't want to sell you a tank. And I thought to myself, what did I say? Because I want you to have the whole collection.
In short order, the two men draw up a plan to create a Jacques Littlefield tank exhibit in Massachusetts.
We would grant all the assets to them, and they would take the responsibility to provide the plans for a building, the land for a building.
But just because you're willing to give away a fleet of tanks doesn't mean you could just hand over the keys and be done with it.
There's a family that inherits something this vast, responsible for also raising the finances to do it.
I don't know of any museum, even those that are well-funded, that would volunteer and come in and take on this type of responsibility.
For this entire scheme to work, the Littlefields must accept an arrangement to raise a certain amount of money.
Did you know what that number was?
Yes.
And it's a big chunk of change. Can they do it? That's next.
Here's another quiz question for you. This German personnel carrier from Jacques Littlefield's collection was driven by Lee Marvin in the World War II classic film, The Dirty Dozen. What's this model of half-track called? Is it a prime mover, tankette, or kangaroo? The answer when we return. So what's this 12-ton vehicle used in the World War II classic The Dirty Dozen called? It's a prime mover. Lee Marvin drives it, playing an insubordinate officer on a top-secret mission to assassinate a group of Nazi generals.
It's July of 2014, and the Littlefield family is nervous. They've agreed to donate their strange inheritance, the largest private collection of armored vehicles in the world, for a new museum to be built by the Collings Foundation in Massachusetts. The foundation cannot house all 240 tanks in the museum, just the cream of the crop.
We had a methodology going into this of what vehicles we wanted to present, and that boiled down to 85 tanks.
They're Jacques Littlefield's greatest treasures. They include the personnel carrier used in the Dirty Dozen and the German Panzer V Panther tank that Jacques Littlefield finished restoring right before he died. Littlefield's kids wish Collings didn't have to split up their dad's collection, but know some must be sacrificed to fund a permanent home for the rest. And museums cost a lot of money. So, along with Bill Bowler, they gear up for a barn burner of an auction on their ranch outside San Francisco.
It's not easy to put a collection together and have the funds to open up a museum. Did you know what that number was going into the auction?
Yes, around $10 million.
$10 million, and failure's not an option. If the numbers fall short, some of their father's most prized vehicles that they dearly want in his namesake exhibit must go.
We picked out 5 very, very rare vehicles, and we put a high premium on those.
Valued at several $100,000 each, the 5 include this Sherman tank, the last of its kind, a German 8-ton half-track, just as coveted as the 12-ton used in the Dirty Dozen, an American amphibious assault vehicle, a German Panzer IV, and this jumbo Sherman, one of just 8 in the world.
What was that day like?
I don't even know how to describe it. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, like, oh, are we going to raise the amount of money that we need?
300 coins wise, 350.
The auction seems to get off to a strong start. This 2S7 self-propelled gun fetches $92,000. This Humber armored car, $97,000. Amphibious tank, $172,500. Grant tank, $276K. Stewart tank, $310K. And that Scud missile launcher goes for $345,000. They're north of $1 million, heading toward 2, but still a long way from 10. Will they have to sell any of those rare tanks to reach their objective?
That was the million-dollar question.
The answer, next. What's your strange inheritance story? We'd love to tell it. Send me an email or go to our website, strangeinheritance.com.
Now the conclusion of Strange Inheritance.
For all their lives, the children of Jacques Littlefield watched their dad collect tanks, tinker with them, and deploy them in the coolest birthday party entertainment ever. After he dies, they decide to share their strange inheritance with the world.
What's it going to be like to go into the structure and not see tanks anymore?
I don't know if it's so much as seeing tanks as it's the smell of the diesel and the grease that I really love.
500, 200 to start the making, 200.
Having agreed to donate the collection to the Collings Foundation, Allison and her half-brothers must watch some of their dad's tanks be auctioned off in order to raise $10 million to erect a museum in his honor.
200, 250.
But as the auction nears the end, it appears receipts are still short of that target. At least one of 5 super rare tanks the Littlefields fervently hope to see in the museum may have to be sold. But which one? The bidders get to choose. Only one of the 5 tanks attracts a bid above the confidential reserve. It's the 8-ton German half-track, a hot ticket from World War II. And it goes for $1.2 million. The auction passes the $10 million mark. For the Littlefields, it's mission accomplished.
Is this what your dad would want? Are you convinced?
I think this is definitely the best option that we have available to keep the core collection together and have his name attached to it.
When we are through with the Collins Museum, this will arguably be the finest collection of its sort anywhere.
And it'll be the Littlefield collection.
And it'll be the Littlefield collection.
Remember how we told you about Jacques Littlefield's July 4th tradition? When he would haul out an M60 Patton tank and stage a fight between the tank and a civilian car? It's so much fun. We thought you might like to see another of Jacques' confrontations. All right in your own backyard. What a dad. I'm Jamie Colby for Strange Inheritance. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, you can't take it with you.